Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. If you can actually hear me, just maybe send a chat message or raise your hand or something like that. Thank you. I hear that. So, welcome to the Focus Build webinar. So, I've been doing a series of webinars on Focus Build on various topics. Um, some of them I touched upon were on agile, about how agile and focus build and activate work together and things like that. um, you'll be able to find the recordings of those webinars online on LinkedIn as well as on my website. But today is actually a topic which I'm really interested and wanted to cover that, basically about how do you get started with focus build. So let me start the PowerPoint here. Um, you all can see my screen, right? Okay, wonderful. I see a hand there. So without much delay, let's get started. So basically, today's presentation is about you have focus build. We all know that there's no license cost, and all you have to do is just install it. So with that in hand, how do you get started with focus build? It means that how do you enable your team to actually um, get them started to use it in terms of putting the requirements or developing process or anything like that. So that is what this webinar is all about. I want to give you with an example about like a phased approach is my example I want to give, where how you're going to deploy focus build in your S4 HANA project. And this applies for both for greenfield as well as for a migration project. So we're going to talk about these topics, introduction, a little bit about me, and terms and concepts. Just want to explain you some of the concepts I'll be touching upon today. Brief introduction about those, and also in case you don't know, like I would talk about what is focus build, just from high level, just to give you an idea about what the product is and what's the use of it, and how do you get started. That's the main topic. And also, once you get started or before you get started, how do you do the migration into it? There's some aspects of it. Migration, it may not be a major migration, but there's some things you need to do in order to migrate to using focus build in your project. So these are all the things we will be covering today. For the delay, let me just give a small introduction about myself. I'm Srinivas. You can call me Srini. I'm a focus build architect, and at Synergetic, I'm responsible for solution delivery and architecture. So that's a little bit brief about me. And now let's talk about the terms and concepts. The first thing is activate. So you probably heard about this many times in a lot of webinars, like the activate methodology. So my definition about it is that it's an SAP's methodology. It's an SAP's proprietary methodology for implementing SAP software. It's agile based. It does have agile core days, but it's a methodology by itself. But however, from my experience, it's agile based, and it's also like a bit of lean thinking and things like that. So there's a big advantage of using it. It'll give you a lot of standard activities and process to implement SAP. It will put you on a track, providing you all the inputs for what to do at what time to do, so that you just don't start a flurry of activities which are either not required now or get confused into bringing all the unnecessary implementation activities. So it'll let you implement a project in a phased approach and provides you all the standard activities and process. Next comes the SAP best practices. The best practices and the activate methodology are sometimes looked as the one piece. Um, well, sometimes it's the best practices and activate methodology are kind of tightly weaved together. So the best practices are basically industry standard practices. They are actually independent of methodology, as a matter of fact. But just the activate makes it easy for you to consume best practices. So best practices are industry standard business processes which can be easily consumed in implementation, so that they are there so that you don't start a process development from scratch, so that you'll be able to leverage what is out there and what is being used by other industries and also gain success in those practices. So with focus build, the reason to put this the term and concept here is that one of the things you're going to do in focus build is to um, facilitate the consumption of best practices actually. So that's why we're talking about it now, and we're going to touch upon that in the getting started slides. And then agile, you probably I'm pretty sure you heard about this. It's basically it's a framework and it's a methodology where you incorporate the idea of incremental development and learning through the process of development. That's very important. So you have the opportunity to learn and also develop incrementally, develop and learn from the feedback from the customer once you deliver the solution. So agile, it's very different from waterfall. Traditionally, SAP projects were waterfall, but um, slowly they have moved into agile. And like I said, Activate is agile, and Focus Build implements Activate methodology, which means that Focus Build also is follows the agile processes and the agile framework. Risks and issues. This is basically a module in Focus Build. That's why I have it here. A risk is basically a potential issue. It may or may not happen, but you identified it early on, and you also identified, for instance, the impact of it, whether it's high or very high. You can even put a number to that impact in risk management. So you document that and you develop a mitigation plan. Whether you want to um, solve it with some solution, you're passing on the mitigation. There are many ways of mitigating a risk, but just want to give a definition of risk in the first place. So issues are, issue could be a risk which has already occurred, basically, or maybe issue is something you just identified and now documented as a risk in the previously. But issue is something which is already a problem, and you're trying to resolve it. So those are the issues. Issues. So risks and issues are actually can be managed in Focus Build. Um, that's something we're going to cover today in the getting started. So backlog. This is also a terminology which you commonly hear in Agile. So backlog is basically requirements in Focus Build. However, sometimes in Focus Build, we look at the requirement, the work package, and work item also together as a backlog, because it's basically backlog in various stages. Until it becomes productive, you can look at it as a backlog. But generally speaking, requirements are backlog. So that's something we're going to touch upon today, like, how do you roll out the requirements module. And the last one is process documentation. So process documentation, it's basically a platform, or you can even call a module in Solution Manager, and it's tightly integrated into Focus Build. So process documentation is basically all documentation of your project. And the most important thing that in that is the business process steps and the business process documentation. And process documentation has business process steps, and it also the platform for you to consume a best practice. So when you load a best practice content, you load it into the solution documentation or the process documentation platform. That's where you'll be able to consume the best practice content, and you can also record documents there and do all and make that as the starting point for the process development. So that's an important thing. And in S4HANA, it's very important too, because um, it is the platform for you to consume a best practice. So what is Focus Build? You probably heard about it in many webinars and all that, but I still want to give a brief explanation about what it is. The tool Focus Build is a pre-configured tool. It's basically an add-on on Solution Manager, and it basically uses the Solution Manager modules underneath it. So it's not a separate application. It's just I would say like a bunch of configuration, so that you don't have to configure the Solution Manager modules from scratch. So it's just a pre-configured Solution Manager tool, basically. So, but it's looked as a separate tool because it stands out from the other Solution Manager modules, although it depends on them. So the key things to note about it is that it is pre-configured. There is no additional license cost, and you cannot also change a lot in Focus Build, except for a few things here and there where you can change the input for the input values. Most of it, I would say, like majority of the Focus Build is pre-configured, and you cannot change it. However, that's not really a looked upon as a disadvantage by any clients, as from what I see, because it does meet more than 90% of the requirements of most of the projects, especially the S4HANA projects. So there's always some things, which you try to like manage additional reporting needs and things like that. But it does meet most of the major needs of S4HANA projects. So that's the overview of what Focus Build. It's pre-configured, ready to jumpstart. It's you just have to install an add-on and do a little bit of configuration. That's the part we're going to cover today in getting started. And you have the tool. And what is the tool used for? It's basically the one tool you need to implement S4HANA. So if you have Focus Build, you don't need any other tool to implement S4HANA for all aspects of it, whether it is project management, solution documentation, requirements management, the change management, as well as testing and the defects and the release management. All aspects are there. And it's a fully integrated solution. It means that all modules talk to each other. What I mean is that, let us say you configure a sprint in the project plan, and then it's available for the change management, so that you can assign the work items to that particular sprint, actually. So the modules are all fully integrated, which also means that you have the latest and greatest reports available in the dashboards. That's called the solution readiness dashboards. I just listed as dashboards here. So with Focus Build, you get a pre-configured workflow. That is the first block you see on the screen, and you get Fiori apps. So everything is a Fiori app in Focus Build. Very user-friendly, very easy to use and understand and navigate. A lot of intuitiveness is already placed in Focus Build, and that's presented in the Fiori apps very nicely. And you have dashboards. Some people say that it's just the one place to find the truth of the project. Means that the latest and greatest information of the project is just available for you. You don't have to search for it or struggle for it. So that's the greatest of the solution readiness dashboard, and you don't have to do anything to integrate and make those reports, like loading the cubes or anything else like that. You just configure a background job, and it comes in place. I think with the latest support pack, you can even do a refresh it dynamically. And the last one, most importantly, security roles. You don't even have to develop security roles, sub roles for your teams, developers, project managers. They're already in place for you. You just have to copy them into your Z space or run through your security checks and just deploy them. It's role-based. So if a person is playing two roles, like a developer and architect, he can just take two roles and they'll get all the tiles they need. Excuse me. So that's about Focus Build. a little introduction. What do you use Focus Build for? Now that we know the tool, it's there for S4HANA mostly, but that's where it got popular. But Focus Build can be used for any project, can be used for ECC and other projects too. So, but particularly with the S4, there's a lot of advantage because it can reduce risk in your project by bringing in a lot of the best practices. So, like I said, you have the best practices whether you have Focus Build or not, but the tool makes the consumption of best practices easier, actually. So it brings everything together. It brings the Activate methodology as well as the best practices and the workflow, and of course, it brings the whole team together onto the one platform. So let the tool do the job. Otherwise, you have best practices, and to consume it, you need to do a lot, put a lot of effort in it. So now, what are the projects it can be used for? So all the projects I'm describing here, it does apply to other SAP projects also, no matter what the SAP the product is. But I just use S4HANA because it's getting more prominent for S4HANA. So it's implementation. You'll be able to develop business processes much easily. Like I said, consume best practices and leverage my Activate at the same time. So for implementation, definitely go for it. Very helpful. Saves a lot of time, saves thousands of hours on testing and other aspects, and gives you accurate documentation. You do want to have an accurate documentation when you go live, especially for an implementation project, and that's possible and much easily done with Focus Build. You're going to build the documentation as you work on the stuff, as you develop the business process. Migration projects, yes, you can do that. You can take advantage of the latest and greatest innovation capabilities S4 is providing by using Focus Build tool, and it's very helpful for migration projects. I helped one client with a migration project using Focus Build tool, and they're very happy about it. And that's why we have the migration path, so that while doing the migration for S4, you can even migrate from other tools also into Focus Build. And also, like if you're doing any enhancements and maintenance, you can still use Focus Build in your maintenance project also. You don't have to immediately shift into Charm or anything like that, because Focus Build does have all the regular change management capabilities, and it's also much simpler and much straightforward. But in some cases, some organizations want to really tighten up and make the processes, the change management process, very strict with a lot of approvals and many approvals and all this stuff. In those cases, they might prefer Charm over Focus Build, but Focus Build does offer all the facilities for you, all the features for you to do run a maintenance project also. I wanted to make that clear. So, however, Focus Build, one thing we recognize is that because it's mainly designed to do the work for you, it's very suitable for implementation and migration projects because it'll give you a lot of, I would say, like a lot of freedom, and it will help you do the work rather than providing a lot of restrictions and putting a lot of controls in place. Actually, it create a control environment, but don't take me wrong, but its main purpose is to accelerate things and bring more productivity, actually. Let's go. So now we are the main aspect, that is the getting started with Focus Build. I'm sorry if these blocks are confusing a little bit. I'll do my best to explain it. So what I did was that I wanted to put all the things you need to do in each phase of the project when it comes to Focus Build, and also them into like work streams here on this side, on the left hand side. So if you take Focus Build installation as step number one, that's your first step. You do that in somewhere in prepare phase. You can do that in discover phase also. And I just put you an example of there. So so that divided that activity, I put it in a particular phase. And I put in things which there's some things which you can do in explore phase. Um, but I do not mean that you can actually still be working on developing, I mean, configuring or putting processes in place for focus build uh, till the end of the explore phase. That may not work. So maybe in the beginning of the explore phase, you may want to like finish off pretty much all the kind of rollouts you want to make for focus build. Here, when I say rollout, what I mean is that there's a possibility that you don't use everything in focus build because it's a lot actually. It's giving you so much like in terms of change management, process documentation, or process management, and in terms of project planning. There's so much actually which sometimes you can consume that. So you want to maybe like it's good to roll out everything if your project can use it, like for example, including testing and all that. But you definitely want to start with something. I would say like always start with the best practices, install them, and try to develop these your target business processes using best practice content. That way you consume it and use it in your start using it in your workshops. You probably start them in the beginning of I would say like in the beginning of explore phases. That's what explore means, right? You explore the best practices and where the gaps you make them as requirements, and it's like a fit gap analysis. Wherever it's fit, you're consuming a best practice. That's what the explore phase is for. So with that introduction, let me go to each work stream activity list. So you start with basis and you do the installation. So work with the basis team. If you're a focus build consultant, may not have all the basis abilities. So you're going to partner with your basis team and work with them, help them to guide them on installing the add-on. It's very straightforward installation. And then initially you may want to connect it to Sandbox. And down the line, I would say like, when you reach Explore, you may want to connect what are the systems you have, like incrementally dev, queue, and maybe like a pre-prod also if you don't have the production ready at the time. So that's where you need help with the basis team. And the next comes the biggest chunk of work for the focus build team. You may have to do the setup. So there's not a lot of setup. Like I said, pre-configured. That is true. It's the solution is pre-configured, and you'll be able to like use it right away. But there's a little bit of configuration which you need to do, like which is actually very detailed in the focus build configuration guide. Um, Depending on what the speed of you're doing, it might take like a week or so sometimes to put that configuration together, and then you may want to like go ahead and install the best practices on it. And initially this is helpful because in the prepare phase, if you're actually doing any prototypes, you'll be able to use the best practice content, and with the sandbox environment in place, you'll be able to do prototyping. So that's what you're going to facilitate in prepare phase, so that you facilitate the use of focus build and do some prototyping actually. And you may want to prepare the requirements app. When I say prepare, like what I mean is that there's some configurable items like the value of a requirement and priority you cannot configure. But there's some things here and there which in the requirements you'll be able to like giving input. When I say it comes with pre-default inputs, but if your organization is already used to a certain values, you can incorporate those. The other things is like categories and things which many organizations already have those categories. Sometimes they they use their departments or things like that as a to categorize their requirements. So you can adopt those actually. Um, so those are the things you also need to identify, saying that what are the standards the organization is following, and work with these scrum masters and project managers and get them incorporated into focus build. However, you also get a lot of requirements about, can you do this, can you put the add one more priority. Um, but a lot of them are not possible in focus build. You just have to keep it as it is, actually. So that's what one limitation of focus build. But from my experience, it will not really be a hindrance to in any way. There's always a workaround for pretty much everything you have as a requirement. And the tool has a lot of features which we can't really sometimes there are more features than we can use, but so most of the time a subset of features itself will be useful to you. But I think there'll be an exception, something that you may want to, the team may be already used to looking at a particular report, but it's not available in focus build. A good example is like a scrum board kind of a report, um, which is not available in focus build. So you do the setup, install best practices, and you also do the prepare the comments app, and you prepare for the migration. We're going to touch upon the migration in the migration slide, but yes, you need to migrate because this is a very common scenario. The reason is that a lot of time business might give you some requirements they have in a spreadsheet or something to the functional team, and they continue to maintain that there, or they have some workshops early on, and then they capture those requirements in a spreadsheet, or the requirements may be in some other system too, some other agile environment, which the organization is currently is using. So that's something you have to migrate that to focus build. I'll explain more about the importance of the migration, all that shortly. So you have to prepare for migration. It means that collect all the requirements from various sources you have and put together in one sheet or something like that. You also want to introduce your team to solution readiness dashboard. Um, the reason I'm suggesting this is because it could be overwhelming for people to see everything together, and that kind of feature never exists in most organizations today. It means that today, if a task is completed, someone developer has to inform that to the PM by an email or something, and then they know the task is completed and they put that in the project plan. But it is not the case in focus build, saying whatever all statuses show there in one place. So people don't know really how to maneuver and how to really consume that. So one of the good thing is to give introduction to a solution readiness dashboard and let people start using that early on. So another thing is ITPPM, which is basically the project management module in focus build. Well, it may not be the best one out there for you to manage a project, but it's actually very important for focus build. If you decide not to put the whole plan in there, actually, it's still okay, from my opinion. But you still need to have the wave planning, the sprint planning, and the milestones are going to be there automatically when you install a focus build project plan. But it's okay not to put all your the minute line item level project tasks in a focus build plan. It's a little cumbersome. It works well, but the interface and everything is may not be as nicer as some of the other screens in focus build. But you could actually put the minimum requirement there, like I said, the phases, the sprints, and the waves, and also the KPIs and all the different things you execute in a sprint, like show and tell and all this stuff, unit testing and all that. Also record all the testings you're going to do, like the regression testing and single functional test. All those things you can put there, like the main things, and you can maintain the line item level tasks, which you actually taken from an activate project plan. You can actually put them in. You can maintain them in a separate project plan also. I'll touch upon this also during our migration to give you an idea of what things which people are using today in whether in a Microsoft project as well as in Microsoft project and focus build. And you want to put together a release. This is very important. You need to have the wave assigned to a release. So release is basically its groups go live, and it tells us when a project is go live. So you have to configure that and assign that to your focus build project. work with your the PM or the Scrum Masters to identify all the parameters of the release, like when is which phase, when is explore starting and when is it ending, and all this stuff. So with that, when you plan the release, you automatically get to plan an idea. Discussion comes about wave planning. So you have to plan the waves, the release, and the sprints. So probably going to work with the Scrum Masters and take the input from them. You may not be the one planning that, but the Scrum Masters do it. But you need to capture all that input and um, ensure that it is put into the ITPPM, into the focus build project plan, the wave information and the sprint information, as well as the release too. Another module is risks and issues. It's kind of optional, but I see a lot of benefit using it. Risk management especially is very, I would say, like very feature rich. It has all the features you need for a risk, it lets you put all the detail level mitigation plan and categorize them, um, with the probability of happening versus the intensity and all the stuff. So it's a very useful application, and it does show up on the solution readiness dashboard also. So risk issues will be very handy, saying that a good example is that a project has an issue, but the business may not know it clearly unless they come to your Scrum of Scrums. But having access to the solution readiness dashboard, they'll be able to anytime look into the risks and and the state of it. And of course, it goes with anything actually. They will be able to know what stage is the requirement by just going on to solution readiness dashboard. But a lot of times risks and issues, they become obscure and no one knows it until it becomes a bigger issue. But by putting them out there in solutionless dashboard, they are readily available and you'll be able to discuss on them in your Scrum of Scrums and all that. And for the focus build work stream, you further need to also, by end of explore, you may want to get the test suite and the test steps ready. Test suite is configured. You just have to prepare things. We'll touch upon that in the next row. But you may need to help in ensure that the test steps are able to be generated from the process documentation. In case if you don't know, test steps are basically like it's a focus build version of test script. Basically, it's generated dynamically from the process steps. So if you have process documentation out there, maintain basically all the process steps you developed for a business process. Test steps can be dynamically generated from that, so that you'll be able to use that as a manual test case and also document all the results in that. It's a very convenient way, and most importantly, it stays accurate because it's linked to the business process documentation. And the same goes with the defect management. You want to just make sure that it's working state and it's ready for use, because that's when you will actually use that in realization. Once you configure it, you jump into testing, and you'll be needing that module to create defects actually. Here, what I also meant that is that you should be using everything in focus build, so that the workflow lets you, like, you test it and you create a defect right there, and they all have that connection. It will be very hard if you want to use defect management somewhere else, and if you want to do the testing over here and all that. So try to use all your needs are available in focus build. Try to use focus build unless you really have some reason not to do a particular thing in some other application. And for the testing team, primarily in explore phase, you may want to make sure that your test suite is prepared, and you'll be able to preparation. What I mean is that not just the Oasis nodes and things like that. Make sure you have all the configuration, any configuration that needs to be done. You have it. There's not a lot you can do there, but any inputs and things like that. And you also get ready for the automation tests if that's what you want to do. Where you want to put your data and all this stuff. Those kind of preparatory stuffs actually. But from a configuration standpoint, you have to really have the test suite configured. Actually, that's not really coming with focus build. Actually, test suite is like a module by itself. So the focus build team needs to set up the test suite, like the general setup, actually using the guided configuration. That's one thing, actually, kind of a prerequisite also for the focus build installation. So you'll be doing it pretty early on, the test suite setup. And the security team, actually, they are needed. Actually, they need to prepare the roles for you, but the roles are, I would say, like 95% ready. It's a rare situation that you go to a role and you have to add a security object or something in focus build. And that's very important because it's not, security won't be an impact for you to getting started with focus build. You can just use those roles right away. And in situations that where you already have a charm in productive state and things like that, um, you can actually put some restrictions to solutions and things like that. But still, the roles are pertaining to the focus build document types. So you really don't have to worry much about security. Yeah, it's a great situation that you develop anything in these roles. One common thing is that sometimes you may have to merge the business analyst developer, or use the architect in some other role, like it, or add uh, test person to the I mean, it's not a good idea to add test and developer together, but in cases, like maybe analysts and testing, if you can merge these roles, depending on your requirement. There's nothing wrong in it, but of course, but the one restriction I would say, like, try not to make the same person do the testing and developing. Just have a little bit of segregation of duty there. And an architect role is pretty powerful. So some organizations tend to limit that, actually, because it can let you make the modification to business process and things like that. So otherwise, all roles are available out there. You can always add the role, and they'll get like a separate set of tiles. So there's really not a lot of security development, but still leverage security for copying them into your namespace. And one important thing is that you have to maintain these the business partners, which definitely you got to do that for a lot of other applications in S4 scenario. So maintain the business partners, and for assigning tasks in ITPPM, you may have to assign them as a resource role, actually, in business partner. So that's very important. You can maybe do a mass change and things like that to save time. And um, assign the business partner is definitely a must, because when you want to assign a work item or work package in focus build, you have to search them by the name, actually, not by the user account in solution manager. So that's why it's all connected to business partner, and your inbox and all that, like my work items and my work packages, they all work with the business partners. So it's very important to maintain that. If you have any duplicates and things like that, work on that. And get the production ready roles. If you want in a Z namespace and things like that, you get them ready, and the organization can decide on who should get what role. Um, for instance, I'll give you a ballpark figure that the team leads normally can have an architect role, and the team members can have like a developer role. Um, and the PM should have, the PMs and Agile Scrum Masters can have the project manager role. However, there's a scenario that if your developers today are, you need to empower them to create requirements, for instance, which is very common happens. So you can either add that functionality, the create functionality, make a modification to the role and add that, or you can even add, like, merge your analyst and developer role, because analyst role um, has the ability to create a requirement. There's also a security guide in Focus Build, which gives you all, like, which role has like a matrix, which role has what features. And if you need to give a role to your business so that the business can log in and take a look at requirements, they want to know at what development stage is this requirement, and if they want to log on to the solution readiness dashboard and look at risks, issues, and you name it. You want to look at it. A lot of times it's very helpful for business to take to participate in that so that they know it firsthand, like what is all the different things happening in the project. You can give them an analyst role if that's what they want to do it, or you don't have to make a custom role actually, but just give them an analyst role. And one good thing is that with the analyst role, the business is also empowered to create requirements. So in most scenarios, although the business and the IT team is considered as one team in Agile, I totally like that concept. Um, the business kind of owns the requirement, and they need to set the priority and the value of requirement, and that's can be made possible if they have direct access to the access to focus build. So although this is a tool for implementation, yes, you can still give them access and give them training to look into requirements and manage requirements, like create requirements and manage requirements, and they can even upload any documentation, any business process documentation they develop, they can upload to that. So that makes it very convenient for them, and I would say it creates a lot of interaction, and with that interaction, you know a lot about requirements by facilitating such interaction. The more you know, the better you can serve the business needs actually. So training is a very important aspect of rolling out focus build. SAP provides a lot of training material. Leverage that. Try not to reinvent the wheel by making something from scratch. Even though your organization is specifically using certain modules, certain process, you can still leverage a lot from the training material. I would say let everyone train on the analyst, developer, architect, and all of them. Although they're going to give them, you're going to give them only one specific role, but just they know the end-to-end process of each job functionality. Leverage the SAP training material, train the project team, and definitely train them in prepare phase. Very important. And you should also train them in explore phase before you roll out. I would say before you roll out every module, any module, you train them again one more time in that module and just general training too, actually. So don't go short on training. Very important thing. And the best way to learn focus build is hands-on. If you do hands-on and create documents, you'll learn it, you remember it, and you'll also I would say enjoy it. Actually, it's a very friendly application. So I just grouped the different activities here. Don't want to consume too much time. Earlier slide. Installation, just as an add-on, you may have to put a whole bunch of notes in it. Make sure you put all the notes. It's very important. Work with your basis team, help them out. And there's a lot of stuff which they may not understand fully. So focus build person needs to help that out. Install best practice content and work with your basis team on it, installation. Although you may not own that actually, you're going to work with them. And configuration, the minimal configuration needed, you have to do that in the installation. The guide provides you that. And the configurable items like value points and effort points, which you want to work with your Scrum team or the PM team. You need to develop some processes. When I say process, is that nothing is going to change in the workflow, but how they want to capture requirements, basically, like it'll become like a organization specific. They say that, for example, we want to give a certain effort point to certain category. That's basically the organization specific process. So these things you can just document those, but it does not really reflect a lot of change in the training of the general product, but it's just the way they use it actually. So you can incorporate those changes in your slides, saying that we're going to create requirement in this way. We're going to create our folder structure in process documentation in this way. So that's very important, because a standard tool, in order for an organization to use it, it has to be the process of how they use it, not the product. The product itself may not change much because it's a pre-configured standard solution, but the process of how you're going to use it you may have to develop that a little bit and incorporate that into your training material, maybe develop job aids, develop a process flow and things like that. Like who's going to approve what? For example, all requirements have to be approved by business. But in some cases, they say that we are okay with the architects approving it or the PMs approving it. So that's a process which you agree on. So you put that in place in the training and things like that. This is very important. Without talking about the process and identifying it and studying it and understanding what we're going to use and what we're going to skip, those kind of stuff, you won't be able to use that effectively because every person uses it differently unless you come up with a common process for each module. And the training, actually, the training that you're going to leverage the training material, but by the time you put your process into the place, it's going to become like a hybrid training scenario. But you can definitely use a lot of it, the standard training, because it's still a standard solution. But there's still, it becomes, end of the day, by the time you roll it out, it becomes organization specific, actually. Agile planning, very important. You're going to work with the release planning and sprint planning and all that with the Scrum Masters. They'll be one of the important group for you for focus build success, actually. And a lot of times, believe me, actually, they're going to love focus build because it is perfect. Just things needed for the SAP project, and they like the straightforwardness and the nice presentation of focus build, actually. So all the agile planning, you're not going to do it, but you're going to work with the Scrum Masters, and you're going to like take their input and configure those in the focus build. Or sometimes the Scrum Masters themselves, like I said, if we give them the PM access and they take the training, they'll be able to put all the sprints and everything in focus build. Enablement, definitely this is basically about, and I use the word enablement here because you're actually enabling the business team with the requirements. This is something I recommend, saying that enable the business team to create requirements so that they take ownership of a lot of the attributes of the requirements, like the value points and the priority and things like that. And they also know they'll be later on will be in a position to track, like use the traceability capabilities of the focus build and try and trace that requirement. So enable the business early on. It's very helpful. I recommend that so that they'll be able to, like, if not create, at least see the requirements. Best practices. You should actually, again, enable the functional team by introducing them to the process documentation platform and showing them where the best practice content is and all that, so that they will be able to consume the best practices. Without the functional team enabled, the best practice consumption will become very difficult. I would say it's impossible, actually. So they are the ones who we should become comfortable using the process documentation platform and use it in the workshops and use it to build the business processes, target business processes using the best practice content. So enable them, whether it's training or working with them to develop folder structures and things like that. And even maybe sometimes you may need to show them like how to consume a best practice. And roles, like I said, the roles are delivered for immediate consumption. If you have to adjust them here and there, you can do them, but I would recommend not to develop any role focus build from scratch. Use the SAP role and make minimal adjustments. And you have to maintain the business partners also. Build. OCM, very important. They are the ones who you need to work with to manage the transition, actually, because there's a transition from you're leaving all your existing tools, maybe just for your S4HANA project. The organization may be still holding all the tools, but for S4HANA, they have to leave all the tools and move to focus build. So that transition you need to manage, actually, and you need the help of OCM team to manage the transition, whether it's just training or even just the whole migration as a task and as a step, actually. So these are the teams. The teams as well as activities, I just group them together. Like you work with the business, functional, security, testing, OCM, Scrum Masters, and PMOs. These are all the people you need to work with to make focus build a success, actually, or even just roll it out in the first place. If you roll it out, it's a success, no doubt. So migration. Why do you even have to do that, actually? Because why do you have to migrate? Like I said, for S4HANA, use focus build as a one tool. So you may be having a lot of discrete tools now, one for Agile, one for testing, one for PM, and something for defect management, and maybe SharePoint for document, some other product, but or some other product. So you end up consolidating everything into focus build. You end up bringing all of them into focus build. So that's why you need to have a migration plan. Without a migration plan, you may end up leaving a lot of open documents in other systems. So have a migration plan, because you need to bring stuff into project management if you're using it full-fledged, or even if you're using a little bit of it, you may have to bring the sprint planning and things like that, and solution documentation. You may be having documentation today in a different solution within Solution Manager itself, but you still need that in the S/4HANA solution, because at the end, we just want you to have one solution, and that's recommended, and requirements and all the modules. You need to bring the things from different tools into focus build, actually. So later on, once you're successful, beyond the S4 project, your organization may decide to completely leave other tools. But for S4 scenario, it's just that you decide that to do all S4 activities in focus build. You may still have your other tools out there. So let's talk about the possible solutions. I mean, again, I'm not saying that these solutions are possible and applicable for you, but you can try them. If you have open requirements today in Excel, or if they're downloadable in Excel from other tools, you'll be able to use the Excel template, requirements template, like download the actual requirements today you have in focus build, and use that as a template, that Excel sheet, and upload it using a program into focus build. Or if there are not many, you can as well key in them manually. If you have test scripts, depending on the version of focus build, I think in the latest versions you'll be able to upload the test scripts if they're in Excel format, and import them into focus build. If you have project tasks in explore phase, and if you want to capture those high level tasks, you can re-enter them in focus build, and there's a big advantage there. They will actually show up in the solution readiness dashboard, all the tasks in the various phases, actually. So in explore phase, you have tasks like a preparatory task, but in the realization phase, you have more of change documents. So there's a big advantage in putting this in the focus build project plan, because there's a lot of reporting out there, and which solution readiness dashboard and all that, and also it's very convenient with the My Tasks app in the Fiori focus build, where you'll be able to, like, a person will be able to update the task status by themselves, actually. So it saves a lot of time for agile people, the scrum masters, because they don't have to do the task of this for each person. So they will, like, close the task, put the percentage updates, put comments and all that. That's very convenient to do. But like I said, it's the application ITPPM, it's the project plan. It may not be as great as some of the project planning tools, but I would recommend do this though, like at least put your explore tasks there, so that the things you're taking from the activate project plan per work stream, put them there, or at least the headlines there, and put the status of those, so that everyone gets to know, like, when is your QA getting billed, and when are you doing client copies, or things like that, actually, in the explore phase. Your risks and issues, you may have to re-enter them in the focus build. There's an app for risks and issues. You can put them there, and they will immediately everyone will know the status using the solution readiness dashboard and all that. You have multiple solution scenarios, saying like you have ECC today and you have the documentation in that, and you're migrating to S/4HANA. Well, the recommended thing is to use the same solution for migration also, because your existing ECC will be migrating to S4. But if for some reason, if your documentation is inconsistent, something like that, and if you have to start the second solution, make that as a, That's also fine. But you just need to have a migration plan saying that which documents you want to move to the S4 solution. And if you're using Microsoft Project Plan today, like I said, if you want to continue with that, there's nothing wrong in it. Yes, it's fine, totally fine. Just put the minimum things in the focus build project plan, like the waves, the release plan, and high level tasks in the explore phase. It's also not needed, but if you want to do that, but main things are the release, the waves, sprints, and all the KPIs and the and the key activities you do in a project. With that, you'll be able to manage most of things needed in focus build plan, and other line item level tasks in the Microsoft project. There's nothing wrong in that having continuing in both of them. It's up to your organization needs. Just have 4 minutes left, so just want to say that if you guys have any questions or need help with to build a focus build POC, or have consulting questions, or need any assistance with the project plans and things like that, you can definitely contact me. And I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to add me into your LinkedIn profile. You guys have any questions? I think I have a question here. Considering SAP's roadmap towards SAP Solman as a product, the support of SAP Solman product is planned in 2027. How it is valuable to use Focus Build in customer offering? Good question. There's a big difference between, I would say, just the solution manager and the Focus Build, because if you want to jumpstart for S4HANA, you don't have a lot of time. So if you start developing a product in solution manager, you may end up doing it for, I would say, like several months actually, and you may not even have all the requirements at the time. But with Focus Build, you will be able to jumpstart actually very quickly, and they. But the thing is, it may not meet all your 100% requirements, but like I said, it meets 90 to 95% of your requirements are met. So in that way, Focus Build's advantage is that it is pre-configured and it'll let you jumpstart, and you'll be able to leverage Activate very effectively using that. So Activate is a methodology out there, but Focus Build is the tool to consume that. But if you have to make all that in Solution Manager in your custom tailored one, it will take quite a while actually. I'm not saying it's not achievable, but it'll take a while to do that. What is the typical project period for implementation of Focus Build? Just for jump starting, I would say within 3 months you'll be able to jumpstart. But the installation and the initial configuration, you should be able to finish it up in 2 weeks. ITPPM is not the best. Well, I don't know it's, I would say, like, comparatively, actually, your PM team will have I've seen it in multiple scenarios. Let me put it this way: the Focus Build will have like a completely new outlook, whereas ITPPM is like the old module. It's just connected to Focus Build. So it is needed though. It's kind of mandatory, because without that, you cannot connect the release actually to your work packages and work item. So you need that, but to use that, it is the interface is not that friendly, and the reporting capabilities are also like somewhat limited. But I think Focus Build, the group, I mean, SAP is trying to do in such a way that you'll be able to show, I would say, like some of the ITPPM stuff more effectively in Focus Build, but that's not there yet actually. So you'll end up using the kind of a older version of the project management tool. The feedback I got so far is that it is not that great actually. So my experience is that by leveraging both Microsoft Project or other tools, as well as also, like I said, since you have to use it in Focus Build, leveraging both of them had a better advantage actually. Instead of, you don't want the PM team to become handicapped just because of they're not familiar with the tool. But the PM team loves the solution readiness dashboard though, which they can never get, that they could not get with other tools. So it's okay to use Microsoft Project, continuing that, but also build the minimum requirement project in IDPPM. What version is your focus presentation? SP Support Pack 6 actually. Thought I should have mentioned that. So, and there are some new stuff actually which came out in, I think, in SP7 and the latest versions. For example, the upload of test scripts and things like that. But I based my presentation on Support Pack 6. Can you share your presentation after the call? Of course, yes. And I actually already put that in the LinkedIn before the this webinar, but I can send it again to everybody. Do you recommend for brownfield implementation of S4 as well? Definitely. It's very helpful. Like I said, if you do that, you'll be able to leverage, although if you're just continuing your existing business processes, you're not changing a lot even then, but there'll be some items you're going to re-engineer actually. So in that aspect, it's very helpful because you'll be able to leverage the latest and greatest innovation in S4. But if you're asking a question, if you're not consuming best practices, what is the use of Focus Build? But I would say still you leverage the Activate methodology very easily. So it means that you're not doing, you're avoiding wastage. You bring a lot of efficiency by just using Activate methodology. And Activate is a separate methodology. You can still use it using any project tool, but with Focus Build, the tool helps you implement that. Just the methodology alone without the tool is a little bit hard to use and leverage. So the biggest value, however, I would say of Focus Build is that it will let you consume best practice easily. If you're not doing that, a lot of it, for whatever reason, if you're just migrating as is to S4, you may not be leveraging the best practice aspect. But there are a lot of other things, the good things in Focus Build: Activate, efficiency, saving time, accuracy in documentation, and all that. You mentioned that it's necessary to prepare the test suite and test steps. Practically, testing is part of the project, which is often not covered 100%. If the testing isn't covered sufficiently, will it have an impact on using Focus Build? And it is easy to further add test. Do not understand this completely. Practically, testing is part of the project, which is often not covered 100%. See, when it comes to testing, actually, it's the Focus Build does not mandate you to do like an automated testing or things like that. So initially you do the unit testing at the work item level actually. So at the work package level, which basically the work package is something which you finish in a wave, whereas a work item is something you finish in a sprint actually. So at the work item level, work package level, you do the single functional testing and things like that. So you have a lot of I would say like a lot of ways of doing it. One is that you'll be able to leverage the test steps, which is like a ready and dynamic, and you just in one click you'll be able to generate the test steps actually, and that's very helpful. So otherwise, you'll be able to do automated testing actually. So that the test suite is like a separate engine, which will actually has its own, I would say like a cockpit and everything. So the test manager will be able to design these. I would say like the test steps and all that for you, and assign it to an individual like a developer. So testing can be like done separately, but it's integrated into the workflow so that it all happens. It all plays together like a single piece. So that's the advantage here. But test suite has to be configured actually beforehand. It's not, there is no pre-configured test suite coming with Focus Build. That's what I'm trying to tell. Did I answer your question? thing isn't covered sufficiently, it will not have impact on focus build. Why? Because I would say, like, you can even use external tools. You can use Tricentis, and Tricentis is not considered external tool anymore because it's kind of integrated into focus build. So you don't have to use the test suite on Solution Manager to to make that workflow happen. The workflow will still work normal, and you'll be able to move all the stuff into production no matter what the other tool is. But the defect management and stuff like that, I think it's fully integrated. And if you open some high priority defects, the system manages you close them before you go live, and things like that. I guess I ran a little bit over time. Sorry. With respect to everyone's time, I want to close this. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And I really enjoyed the Q&A. And hope we'll meet again in the next webinar. And this is, like I said, this is a series, Focus Build webinar series. I'll be covering various topics on Focus Build. Thank you, everyone. Nice meeting you all.